Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Semantic Kernel Public Community Office Hours. As always, remember this is a public forum, so anything you can or you do say here, just note that it's going to be out in the ether, public ether. But yes, we have a pretty packed agenda today in terms of stuff to show off, stuff to announce, even some demos to call out. So let's get started. As always, if you have questions or comments, things that you want to talk about, put it in the chat or just raise your hand. We can always come to you to call on you. All right. So first off, this week, actually just yesterday, I was at the AI Engineers Summit in San Francisco. It's actually a really good conference. It's all about builders and this new emerging term of the AI engineer, kind of this blend between the software engineer and the data scientist, machine learning person, all into one. So this conference was like all for this new persona, which is great. It was all about builders, and I got to present at it, not live on stage, but during the live stream. So if you want to see me talk about semantic kernel, kind of give just a high level overview, you can check that out. It's on YouTube. I'm sorry, I don't have the link to post here, but if you just search AI Engineer Summit on YouTube, you'll see a like 7-hour plus live stream that you can click through. For your sake, the semantic kernel demo is around the hour 56-minute mark. Just FYI. Okay, so with that, we actually have several new blogs that have just come out, and a lot of it is around just preparing ourselves and everyone for the 1.0 release for the .NET C# semantic kernel. So part of it is going to be really centralizing on the term plugins. So any previous reference towards skills, you can replace with plugins, hopefully. And yeah, and there's a lot more. There's a lot of breaking changes, as noted in the chat. I see several people talking about that, but this is all to hopefully get to a more stable place thereafter, right? Once 1.0 is released, then I think the promise is that actually all future changes are backwards compatible, right? So you can build on it reliably into the future. So definitely check out these blog posts. Matthew does a good job in this one in particular, the second one, to go over what are the breaking changes, what are the things you need to care about. Okay, so last week, if you were here for office hours, we talked a lot about semantic memory. So actually, we had our resident architect for that, Devis, to show off several pieces of it, but also answer a lot of questions. So if you want to check out that clip, you can see this video. And with that, actually, with semantic memory, literally just launched or announced today, we have Chris, who integrated semantic memory with Chat Copilot. So I'm actually going to hand off to Chris to talk a little bit more about this, what people can expect, and what got involved in bringing this.
Just to give credit where credit's due, it's a team effort that involved Ben and Tao also. Tao's on the call, and of course Dev is deeply embedded. So I'm happy to present on this stuff. So for just like a lot of people in the community, Chat Copilot was using the memory connector through Semantic Kernel. And with this change, we pivoted away from using semantic text memory and targeting the semantic memory platform in using the memory client, which is similar, but a little bit more of a developed architecture platform in the sense that there's a well-defined processing pipeline that can be hosted in a variety of methods, either in process or out of process as a separate deployment. One of the things that one of the pain points that came up all the time with Copilot Chat was for each chat session that was created, it created 3 different indexes or containers in the vector database, which for ACS, we'd run out of space and then it would be a train wreck. And so with this change, we actually are converging to use a single index for all the chats. So it completely eliminates that issue. So that's a huge pain point addressed. In addition, we get all the goodness of the semantic memory pipeline that Devis demoed in terms of the ability to process other document types like Word documents. And then as we continue to make progress, then that should just light up in Copilot Chat. Now that we have that alignment. In addition, we've done some work that I'll demo in a minute where the Tao was on point for driving this, did a great job, I think, which is integrating citations into the chat experience, which is became possible through this alignment. And one thing, I'm going to share screen.
Stop sharing.
My window here. Is reviewing issues. So, right. So in the Copilot Chat repo, as part of this, we introduced a new project called Memory Pipeline, which is effectively some added complexity. If you're running this, you can choose whether, if you're just running in the dev experience, then nothing's changed. You don't need to really worry about this. But if you're deploying, it gives, it's basically a different scale point because you're going to want to scale the memory pipeline differently than the API, and also as a resiliency boundary. If the memory pipeline, any failure there, you don't want to take down the API or whatever. So that's the way we've architected it, very similar to the way Devis has in the examples in the semantic memory repo. So just to call that out, if you're just using this in your dev box, you're not going to notice it, but as you start to deploy and deal with other scenarios, it is going to crop up. So just to call that out. But all of our deployment scripts have been updated to account for this stuff. So if you go through our deployment process, that should be accounted for. Oh, and just to call out one other thing, the configuration changed quite a bit. But again, if you're using the scripts, this should all be accounted for. So this app settings is effectively a breaking change. So in this, here's a deployed version. And so I'll just ask a basic question. You should see everything. I've uploaded a document ahead of time. You can see this is our ACS instance, which just says one index. That's the default that we have configured. And we'll just get a basic control test here. Slow. I think I must have just be waking it up. Oh, hey, it answered. So yeah, it's a prime number. Oh, no, it hasn't answered. Here it comes. That's not a prime number. Okay, excellent. All right, so now we'll ask a question that should hit the document and we'll get the citation. So just it's the Chat Copilot experience we've all come to know and love, but with a different memory backend.
First of all, we're waiting for this. Anthony is asking in the chat, is semantic memory intended to be hosted as its own dedicated service or within an existing process?
So we have both flavors available in Chat Copilot. So there's an in-process version that's the default for if you're looking at it on your dev box, because it's just kind of a pain in the ass, and you don't really need it for pardon my expression, you don't really need it for the those type of scale issues if you're just running dev testing and little one-off cases. And but then if you're deploying at any point of scale, the usage for the pipeline is probably going to be quite a bit different for the API. So you might want to scale it differently. If you have them hosted together and then you scale it up, you're going to have you're paying for wasted compute on the API kind of, sort of. And so in our case, I think for the int, we're deploying both services to the same service plan. But then if you wanted to really scale them independently, you'd probably have two different service plans and then deploy them separately like that. So yes, they're both available. Actually, I can call out in the config here. The orchestration type in process or distributed is where that's controlled. And so by default, it's in process. If you run it on your dev box, you're going to get that local experience. And then if you pivot to distributed, then you'll take on that extra complexity. All right, so you can see we got the list. You can see from the prompt info that it got the document. So it definitely hit the document. And then, of course, we can see now quite visibly the citation that was used as the source data for the model response, which includes the file name, the snippet, the relevance score, and then also a, if we look, there's a, there should be a one note, but you'll see basically like a footnote inserted in as additional UX. I can't spot it right now, but yeah, I think that's really great. And that's basically it, besides any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, for showing this off.
Chris, actually, I have a question. One of the things I saw initially, which I think was either new to me or I didn't see before, was it calculated the amount of tokens. There was like a little, is that new or is that something I must have overlooked before?
I think it always did it before, but in the past, the token report was always in this prompt info
Right,
dialog.
exactly.
Now with the citation, I think it becomes a little, is it out here too? Oh, no, it's not out here. No, it's always been in here, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Which it's important to give visibility because token usage, of course, translates into
real dollars.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Great. Well, last call for any semantic memory Chat Copilot questions. Otherwise, we will pass off to Fabian, who will give his demo on some cool things, actually.
Cool things. All right. Are you able to see my desktop first of all?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. All right, so I guess we can set up the demo by it's a great segue into what Chris was talking about before with regards to leveraging Chat Copilot as a means to interact, with underlying data and asking questions, which is what my demo is going to do. But the real meat and potatoes in terms of how this starts, and I guess I should introduce myself first, and you'll get the context behind it. My name is Fabian Williams, and I'm a senior product manager on the Microsoft Graph team at Microsoft. So Microsoft Graph is usually at the intersection or crossroads of a lot of things in Microsoft 365. And as such, for developer experiences, we expose various endpoints that developers can use to build solutions and applications. And as a life cycle around Microsoft Graph, we have changes, new additions, we have deprecations, we have, tons of stuff that's going on. And we have a website that's dedicated to that at developer.microsoft.com where we have a changelog. So the question now becomes, as these changes happen over time, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and things are going to get buried. And either from a perspective of an end user who wants to know what's going on, or they're blocked and they need to figure out, has there been a change, or internally here at Microsoft, an API producer or a product manager or a PM, needs to find out, okay, what's going on over time on an API that they manage. I wanted to provide an experience that allows them to ask in natural language what is going on. So this changelog becomes a tool of sorts, and what I'm going to use it as basically the corpus of data, for the for the demo and for the plugin. So it's exposed as an RSS feed, which is great because then I can just use something like Beautiful Soup or other tools in Python to pull this information in. And then you can do a bulk ingress, and then you can do scheduled jobs later on to get items as they change. So upon doing that, where might need to go next? Yeah, here. I basically have that come over into a Pinecone database, and I use this script. Is it that one? Yeah, this script basically to go and grab the change log and RSS feed, pull the information down. It is noteworthy that you want to, because each change, you have no idea what the length is going to be. And yeah, I think to Chris's point before, in terms of tokens, you are going to be using tokens in terms of like the embedding token to embed and get vectors of the items that within the change log. And as you pull stuff in, you want to be mindful of that. So you certainly want to chunk them into the right size. You don't want to either have rate limit issues, or you don't want to have other issues that may come as a result. And using the from GitHub, they provide you samples in terms of how to work with Pinecone. In my instance, not Azure Cognitive Search, which I could have done as well. In terms of how to get that structure, one of the structures that's required is having the ID, the text, which is basically going to be vectorized, and also any additional metadata that's there. And that's what you've seen right there. And then basically you just dump it to Pinecone. I'm using a hosted app, and this one does take authentication, which is something that you need to be concerned when you're building plugins. Is it going to be no auth or is it going to be auth? So this auth is going to be basically a bearer token, and we basically just loop through all of the items and we dump it to Pinecone. One of the things that I did just as test right up front was, and in the end, I also wanted to provide multiple path of use. One path I'm going to demo here is certainly going to be with the Chat Copilot, but obviously you could put this anywhere that you want. Querying it right off the bat, I wanted to create retrieval augmented generation RAG pattern. So setting up my libraries, making sure my connections are good. Like, in fact, I tell you what, you're going to see something here that I haven't talked about yet. So we talked about Pinecone. So let's actually go over to this guy here. And this guy here is basically the hosted application on DigitalOcean that's doing a lot of the work. And this basically is exposed. Let me go to that real quickly here. Is exposed, if I go to here for query, no, MinPy, right, exactly. As that's the wrong place actually. What I want to be is here. There's a query endpoint that you're basically that the Copilot is going to go against, and one of the things it's going to look for is this query pattern, basically. And as example in my descriptor, were there any recent changes to the user endpoint in V1? And that's inside my my OpenAI definition, which is what the Chat Copilot is going to use in order to take the written word as the prompt and then figure out how to structure it so that it can call the this plugin and this manifest when something around graph is invoked. So once that's done, I also, as I mentioned before, I have this guy here. Basically, this is me setting up that query, which is why that's important for me to do this reference before. And I wanted to create something that could be used outside of chat. So I have a RAG pattern here. So I created my own prompt. I'm basically saying that later on, there's going to be something in a variable called retrieve content, which is basically going to be coming from Pinecone. And I'm telling the prompt to manage the history, look at the user input, grab information from there, setting, of course, the temperature to as restrictive as possible, and managing tokens there, and then doing a search back. I'm not going to show this part. I can if there's time left, but I think the other one is just going to be more useful. But once all of that is done, what I want to do is come over here now. Sorry, go back to Sorry for jumping around. There we go, right here. And I'm going to check inside here to see if it's still available. So it's still here and it's still enabled. So basically, if it wasn't there, you would basically add your plugin. You would add basically the site. I'm going to do another one later on so you actually will see it. And just in interest of time, I'm not doing it with this demo. And then you basically do enable, and then you'd have to put in the personal access token, which is the bearer token. But once you've done that, ideally, and I'm just going to grab it. Let me just do another one. New chat session that's a little bit cleaner. And that's what Rick said. Let's just test it. Hi, I am Fabian. See what it's going to do. It's been sitting here for a while. Sometimes it does time out. All right. All right, good. Looks good. All right, so again, just double check it's there. I'm going to go and grab something from a previous one that we've done just for giggles' sake. And there it is. And it's useful to take a look at this as well, too. You'll notice that if I come down here, it talks about SSL certificate. This was done on September the 30th. And there's a few others here where SSL certificate was done. So you know that if you're using just ChatGPT by itself, there's going to be a cutoff period. So we shouldn't expect to see anything from the 23rd. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to ask the question, Control V, enter. And what we should expect to happen is we should get back a prompt, or at least a dialogue in a modal asking us, it found this this plugin. Do you want to do it? And again, with the entire concept of Copilot, you want to make sure that you're in the driver's seat. So you can say, no, cancel it. And this is especially useful if this is going to do something damaging like drop table, delete table, stuff like that. You're going to be able to back that out. So I'm able here to click yes, proceed. And then it should basically go out and structure something for me. And you can see it's basically telling me here some of those items that were done. And when it's finished, I'm actually going to ask it something in context. So this goes to the chat dialogue that Chris also mentioned before. So I'm going to say, well, right now it's just waiting in order to create this item here, which I'll speak to a little bit later. But I can do it in the meantime. Say, was this on the beta or V1 endpoint? And I'm saying it in this context, right? So it should basically figure out, I'm still talking about the SSL certificate. So hopefully when it comes back, we should get the same dialogue and it will infer using the history that I'm talking about SSL. So acquiring external information from the plan again. So now you can see it says where were the recent changes to SSL certificate V1 or beta. So you can see it basically it combined both items there for us. And I'm going to say yes, proceed. And it's important to know here as well, I could be using sequential planner, but in here I'm using action planner. So it's only executing the best plan at a time. It's not actually doing, a chained event. And you can see here, it says it was on the beta endpoint as well too. So it's, you can have a conversation with it. So rather than going and searching and digging and figuring stuff out, within context of where you are, you can do that. So I promised you something else. Am I still good on time, Alex? All right, awesome. See, you're not in your head. So let's actually do something else that I did. I actually have another one here, which is actually an API call. This guy here is a weather API. So it takes your location and does an API call against the weather API and returns information. I'm using that inside Chat Copilot. Obviously, again, the same thing, principles apply. ChatGPT on its own can't give you current weather because it doesn't know that information based on what it was trained on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab this because I'm going to need this here, Control C. So this is me grabbing the app in terms of where it's stored. And I'm going to come back over to here and I'm going to say plugins and I'm going to add a plugin. So this is what you didn't see me do before. Control V, it's going to look at the manifest file and the OpenAPI descriptor. It checks all of those buttons. Everything's fine. I do add plugin. It's added, but it's not enabled. And now in this case, I'm going to do enable. Now, in the previous example, it would have asked me for the bearer token here because this is no auth. It is not. Now, with this done, I can see it's enabled here. And I'm going to come here and say, now, what is the current temperature in Columbia, Maryland, which is where I live? And just for giggle's sake, it should say 68 degrees looking at my watch right here. So let's go ahead and say enter. Should tell me that it's going to go use that other plugin. which is the weather plugin, and then it should come back with information. This one I didn't test before doing the call, so we'll see what happens. Oh, there it is. So it's using the weather plugin, check weather, and it's saying Columbia, Maryland right there. I click OK. And it should say, it says 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, the range is from 44 to 68. And yeah, I guess where I live, it's 68. But at some place in time, it is doing that. And it's actually referencing October the 10th right here, giving us some humidity, winds information, and so on and so forth. So that's another example of just using Chat Copilot. You've seen an example of using a RAG pattern, pulling information from into Pinecone from our changelog, and you've seen another example here of basically doing an API call. And that's what I have for my demo.
Wow, very good. This is awesome, Fabian. I think it was very, very comprehensive. Showed off multiple things. We have a question from John in the chat. I guess the first one that he asked was, will semantic memory be available as a memory provider to the kernel.memory? Well, Chris, you want to take that?
Well, I don't know if Dennis is on the call. I mean, you know, the cat out of the bag necessarily. I mean, a lot of our strategies baking necessarily, but yes, that's certainly on our radar. A lot of I mean, if Matthew's on the call, he might be able to speak more specifically to this. You know, that's certainly something we're working to flush out. I mean, partly the OpenAI plugin is kind of new, and so we've been adjusting to that in general. But yes, there's a lot of interest around that. Absolutely. I'm not aware of a timeline at this point, but things might be moving fast.
Cool. So John also then asks, this probably to Fabian, do you do what you were showing by doing this, a rewrite with context type operation?
Say again, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Maybe John, if you could.
Yeah, John,
come
could
off
you
mute to
Yeah.
Yep, sure, as long as my mic's working. Yeah, and this might actually be a question more for the Chat Copilot team, but when you asked a follow-up question to your plugin saying, in fact, I can't remember what the follow-up question was, but in order to establish what you were actually asking, is that basically a take this question, look at the context of the conversation so far, and rewrite that into one question type of operation?
Well, Chat Copilot will always summarize. So that's always kind of the next step after you enter something in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and now these are the team members that are answering the question. But just looking through, what I did not do in the demo was actually click on the icon at the very top, which actually will show you the raw JSON. So you'll actually see that it's actually doing a few things, which is basically taking your prompt, summarizing the prompt. Then it's basically going to come back and say, hey, I don't know the answer to this, but I found a function that can do it for you. Then basically, and then within that function, the function now looks at the open API spec in order to put it in that definition and then give it back to you. So the answer is yes on both accounts.
That's exactly right. Well said. Very well said.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, mate.
Cool. I see Doug is asking about the bearer token that you shared.
Doug's crazy. I'm not going to give you guys the bearer token to start using it. I know Doug. We have history, and I know he's joking there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Fabian. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Great demo. And again, for everyone on this call or people listening to this recording later, if you want to show off any demos during office hours, please just reach out. More than happy to spotlight you and get feedback. I see a hand up. Ludovic? Hand up. Yes, no? Okay. Oh. Ludovic, if you have your hand up, go ahead. That's
Oh no, sorry, my bad. It's just my keyboard.
Okay,
Sorry.
no worries, no worries. Cool. All right, so we have some questions that got submitted, so we can go through some of these and discuss. There's actually one that I really wanted to hear about. Actually, let's just put that to the top because I think it's a really good one. So if you're on Discord, you may have seen this question, but I think it's very relevant as more and more people are building these type of things and going from demo to production. So this person asks, yeah, like how are people doing this? How are people going from a neat prototype that they've shown off and actually, making it more scalable, making it more production worthy? And there's many frameworks out there. Yeah, I think even Fabian showed off that he was using LangChain's like text splitter for at least the creation of like pinecone indices, or the chunks, to send the pinecone. And all that is like, it's an open ecosystem, right? There are many of these tools and frameworks, many databases, all these things that you as the developer can choose. But then at some point, right, I'm sure everyone will have to be like, how do I go from what I've built in kind of isolation to now I want to deploy this at scale, give it or expose it to many, many users. So yeah, I mean, I'll open it up to anyone who wants to just chime in, give some thoughts. Or I could do the thing where I call on people. How about, I want to hear from Anthony, actually. Anthony's been a very active member on our Discord and these office hours. So Anthony, if you're available, you want to talk about how you're thinking about this challenge?
Yep, I'm here. So I guess, and maybe I shouldn't admit this, but a lot of the stuff we're doing at least is less, more of a move fast and break things type approach, just because things are changing up so frequently. I think this is more of a question in regarding to processes instead of like specific to whether that be semantic kernel or LangChain or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, they're all accomplishing the same thing. Whether one's better than the other, I don't think really compare because they're solving different problems. I think this is more of a processing, like how are you dealing with your data, what authentication mechanisms are you using, things like that. I think I wrote about this in one of the discussion posts. Personally, I think semantic kernel is a way better option if you're building things out right now, just because you get more customization. LangChain is very black boxy. Yeah, it's kind of my intro thoughts on it. I think everyone's still kind of working out this same problem right now.
Doug, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm bringing over my sort of tried and true microservices architecture that I use for global systems. My previous incarnation was at EY, and we had a system that ran in 146 countries that integrated with Microsoft 365 and on-prem stuff, and is inherently sort of a system integration play like this is. And so it relies on an API manager, Azure Functions, and if I needed to scale it out globally, I'd put Azure Front Door in front of it, with rules to go out however I wanted. And my opinion on semantic kernel is that for skills and making those abstract and simple context and pipelines, it is awesome. It's a big time saver. When it comes to orchestrations and complex things, I don't do that in semantic kernel. I do that in durable task library in Azure Functions, which is part of the thing. And then of course, once you're in Azure and you have that stuff, you can stand up all the ancillary services and scale them all independently. But in a question of how do you scale it, that's how you scale it, is by keeping all the pieces nice and elastic and independent of each other.
Yep.
Maybe you want to add or
No,
extend the conversation?
I totally agree with what Doug said as well, and Anthony provided a fantastic answer. I think the scale piece goes to what Chris also mentioned before as well too, in terms of just instances of how you deploy as well too. So scale is going to be important once you start to take this off your dev rig and start to put it into production. Thinking about your audiences, thinking also about even domain data residency as well too can certainly be impacted in terms of where these things are going to live, especially based on your user base. So yeah.
I see that Ram posted this article. I'm trying to open it. Ram, do you maybe want to come off mute to chat about this?
Yeah, I don't have the full details, Alex. Thanks, sir. I got to know about this challenge, so I couldn't have a chance to review everything. But some of the clients seems to be having issues on LangChain scalability issues, and they pretty much seems to be like semantic kernel ability to support. That's some of the feedback I got. So where some of these articles also address the same issues of scalability issues. So meaning enterprise level. So that's what I thought of sharing, because it is a common community. I thought of sharing it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. No, thanks for sharing this. I had not come across this. Cool. And yes, Doug, I think people would love to see this, what an Azure deployment with APIM, Azure Functions, plugins, and all that, what that would look like. So if you want to come by next office hours to show that off, that would be awesome. Cool. Well, good discussion. And again, this is very much emerging area. People are still trying to figure it out. So yeah, if you have ideas, follow-ups, even suggestions, right, how we can make semantic kernel better to help you take your applications to production, well, just let us know. All right, so moving on to this question from Mike. So Mike asks, using SQL to query our company, generated by the user asking natural language, question about the data. We have a curated data table that can answer many business questions without needing more queries, more complex joins. We're using Azure resources. Thank you. So I don't know if there's a question here, but I'm assuming it's around this idea of like, okay, how could I use natural language to answer this, answer, questions on my own data, whereas before I would have to write SQL. Yeah, maybe having to do many joins or multiple queries to try to get it the result. So we've talked about this topic multiple times in office hours. Chris has a great blog post that you could find on our dev blog going over that. It's also in the Semantic Memory repo, right, of this. What was it called, Chris? Like a playground something.
Yeah, NL to SQL sandbox.
Yeah, NL SQL sandbox. Yeah. Oh yes, linked here. I'll just pull it up. People can see. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing what a implementation, for this type of problem could look like, yeah, check this one out.
Azure Cognitive Search also has a connector. So there's also aggregation services so there's different types of solutions that can, querying SQL directly is just kind of like one approach that's available.
Fabian, your hand up.
Yes, I'm gonna say that one of my I thought it was muted. One of my colleagues, Don Wallin, on the Dev Advocates team, actually put a blog out doing something quite pointedly the same thing that you're asking here. And I just pasted the link in the blog. It's doing a React front end that the person could actually ask questions directly into a SQL database with also protections to make sure that you can't do drop table, and also other protections around store procedures and stuff like that.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing this resource. All right. Well, hopefully, Mike, that's helpful to you. If you have more specific questions about this, just let us know. All right. This question from Johnny K about any guidelines on how to achieve AutoGen type collaborative agents using Semantic Kernel. AutoGen is Python based, so I'm looking for something that's C# or .NET. Great question. So this has come up a few times. But if you're not familiar with AutoGen, is a library from Microsoft Research that came out probably a few weeks ago or so. And it is all about kind of spinning up multiple agents and having multiple agents kind of go off to do independent things and then come back together to share their findings, share their results, and coalesce all that together to similarly accomplish some goal or task. So AutoGen is a framework that does this. Apparently it's spun out from this other project, Flamel. I was curious about this. Click on it. Fast library for automated machine learning and tuning. Interesting. But yes, so I think a natural question is like, okay, how does this relate to Semantic Kernel? Can you use it with Semantic Kernel, or are you going to integrate it completely? I think that those questions are probably still to be explored and thought about. For me personally, this was like when it was announced, it was pretty surprising, pretty interesting that just came out kind of from nowhere. But I think there's just some like good core ideas about, especially with agents, and not just like a single agent, but how do you coordinate, orchestrate with multiple agents? So like, how do you achieve this using Semantic Kernel? We haven't come up with a agent framework yet that's built on SK. I think it's definitely one that if we had infinite time and resources to pursue, we would love to go after. So yeah, but I'd be curious to hear from you all, from the community, because I'm trying to also wrap my head around like what are the use cases that having something like AutoGen, multiple collaborative agents, what that enables, and what that what would you be using this library for? So if anyone has answers to that, just let me know, or yeah, if anyone has thoughts about it. But yeah, anyway, it's a good question to bring up. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last of these type of libraries to come out, whether from Microsoft or from others. So, I treat it as like these libraries are an expression of ideas, and you as the developer, us as Semantic Kernel, we can kind of pick and choose, which are the great ideas to latch onto. All right. So we have a couple questions from Discord. So actually just one. So Dawood asked about a plugin to generate images with DALL-E. So we do have a sample, notebook sample. Where is it? Should I open it? That's all. So if you go to this this notebook for .NET in particular, you can see us being able to bring in a image generation service into the kernel. And you can use that, right, to send a prompt directly to, in this case, it's DALL-E 2. I know the latest and greatest is DALL-E 3. I forget if API access is available for that right now, or maybe not. But anyway, right, you can use DALL-E or any image generation service that you implement with the kernel, and yeah, you can see it. You see a render the image here in the notebook. So yeah, short answer is yes, you can. And if anything, I think it shows off the idea that you can bring in any sort of modality, any sort of model type, model service to the kernel. Obviously, you're probably gonna have to write some code, otherwise, our team doesn't have, or it's not on our priorities to just bring in all these different modality types, at least not right now. So yeah, I think it just shows off what's the art of the possible and how we want to position Semantic Kernel as more of a lightweight orchestration framework, which really that's at the core of it, what it should be. And you bring in the plugins, you bring in the services, the APIs, connectors, and all that to make it how you want it to be. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Okay, actually, this next slide is just a duplicate of the previous. So that's it for submitted questions. We actually have a few minutes before the top of the hour. So happy to just open it up to anyone here. If anyone has any topics that they want to discuss. Actually, okay, I see one question from Sager in the chat. They didn't get to address. So Sager asks, is there any external method to replace the SK prompt file of planner so that I can add more rules for the planner without compiling the DLL by myself? Someone from the team want to chime in on this? Well, I'll just start off that the planners, like each of the planners that we have, they are also like semantic plugins, right? Themselves. So they have their own prompt associated with it. So yeah, I think. Oh, okay. I see Devis saying that you can pass a custom prompt to it. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what that looks like. But if you, I think the other answer would be like, okay, if you want to have a different type of planner, right, then you could write your own prompt and do that logic to create that. Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. I will say that, yeah, it's an interesting question because maybe some of the planners that we have, the logic that we're expressing, you may want to customize or do something differently. So I would ask, whether or not that means a brand new planner or actually just a modification of your plugins or your, the plugins that you're bringing to the existing planners. So Sager, if you're on call.
So actually, I mean, like modify. For example, I want to modify to a new action planner. It's not a plugin, just the promoter of the planner, and I don't want to compile it to the DLL by myself. Is there any way to directly replace the current SK promote file of the released DLL by you and simply replace it? So like I can add some more rules of the plan for the planner, but not the plugin.
Chris, do you want to chime in a little, or?
I think it's a great ask. I mean, I was just looking at the API. That's you can see in this folder in the Git repo, that's the SK prompt text he's talking about. It's the resources checked in with the planner code, so it's kind of bound. I was just scanning to see if it looks like through the config on line 68, that might be what Devis was talking about, where you can override the embedded resource through the config get prompt template. Maybe Devis can confirm that. Line 68 of Action Planner.
Yeah, Devis, if you're able to come off mute, you want to chime in?
Hi, yeah, well, looking at the Action Planner file, line 68, like Chris said, you can see that the prompt template is read from the configuration. If the configuration doesn't provide anything, it is read from a file. So when you create an instance of the planner, you can optionally pass in a configuration object. I would suggest to look at the source code. The class is action planner config, and all the planners follow the same pattern. You can pass an optional configuration with an optional prompt and other parameters.
Nice. Cool. Thank you, Devis. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful, Sager. All right. Last 5 minutes. Any questions? Any feedback? You have, a chunk of the team here, so this is your opportunity to get some live answers or responses. So feel free to raise your hand. Yeah, and also just to share out kind of in the horizon, what you can expect. Very much is, trying to get towards a true 1.0 release. So you saw the 1.0 beta announced. So that's what the team is just really laser focused on. So if you all are submitting issues or pull requests that are like these nice to have features, apologies for not maybe addressing some of them or getting to them as timely as we normally would. So, but it's because we're just really trying to nail this 1.0 release. Yeah. Anthony, see your hand up.
So I know there's probably quite a bit you guys can't share just because of Ignite next month. But can you speak at all about potential integrations applications built with Semantic Kernel will be able to do with Windows Copilot, and if that's going to be a thing? I know that was alluded to in the past. I just don't know. Is there any update on that?
You're asking specifically Windows Copilot or just any of the like Microsoft Copilots that were?
Really any of them, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just share in spirit. I don't know if it's going to be concretely like delivered or expressed. It might be, which would be awesome. But I think in spirit, the idea is that, yeah, you can, by centralizing on this like plugin sort of architecture, right? You can use existing plugins that Microsoft has. Maybe there is like a plugin store or marketplace. And maybe you can bring in your own custom plugins. So if you have like a M365 Copilot subscription or instance, maybe you can customize it as you see fit. So, I can't give you the guarantees there, but it's more that from what I know, that's kind of the direction.
Perfect. Yeah, I know in the past it was kind of alluded to that Windows Copilot would be able to integrate kind of the same way ChatGPT does with user-created plugins. I just don't know if that was kind of hopeful for it, but I guess we'll see.
I know Desmond's done some work exploring through the Copilot stuff with Semantic Kernel, integrating with Teams, Copilot, bots, which is different but similar, and he was able to make some progress.
Cool. All right. Any last minute? Okay, I see one last question came in. Oh, so you have to wait for the recording to show up on YouTube. That's the short answer. So I will, once the meeting's finished.
When you get your post-production team on it, Alex.
I do zero post-production other than just like editing out the first half that has nothing, or first like 10 minutes has nothing. Yes, get the AI agents on this ASAP. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Again, come by next time, submit demos or feedback that you'd like to see. And yes, see you all in the future. Take care.